This is your weekly roundup here on the EAC News Channel. Your look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. I'm Paolo Bornini, and we start with Monday. Prince Ranirit has passed away on the 28th of November in France at the age of 77. He was the second son of the late King Father Norodom Sihanouk and was the half-brother of the current king. This Monday morning, Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni, King of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and His Majesty Queen Mother of Cambodia paid their respects to the late Prince Ranirit at a royal ceremony at the mortuary at Samdek Pan Street, Phnom Penh. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
The body of Prince Norodom Ranirit has been escorted to the mortuary house on Samdek Pan Down Pen district in Phnom Penh. At the mortuary, a royal ceremony will be held with the presence of Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni and his mother, Majesty Queen Moniniat Sihanouk. Prince Ranirit's remains has been brought from France into his home country last Sunday. On Monday, the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, has delivered his condolences to Majesty King Sihamoni, stating Prince Ranirit was a close friend of the Chinese people, with the important role of enhancing relations between the two nations as an important member of the Cambodian royal family. In gratitude and to pay tribute to the late Prince Ranirit, the royal government has designated Wednesday this week as a day of national mourning by requiring all ministries, institutions, schools, hospitals, public and private sectors, and civil servants, as well as all the armed forces, pagodas, and people throughout the country to hoist the flag at half-mast. At the same time, all national and private radio and television stations must suspend their performances and broadcasts various entertainment scenes in order to pay their respects to the late prince. Norodom Ranariddh passed away at the age of 77 in France on 28 November. He was born on 2 January 1944 as the second son of Prince Norodom Sihanouk and his wife Pad Khanol. He was the first prime minister from 1993 to 1997 and the president of the National Assembly from 1998 to 26. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Senate President Sai Chum, National Assembly President Heng Samrin and Prime Minister Hun Sen. They have all paid respect to the late Prince Norodom Ranariddh on Monday, the deceased half-brother of King Norodom Sihamoni. Prince Ranariddh died on the 28th of November in France at the age of 77. He succumbed to his illness. Upon arrival on Sunday, his body was embalmed for a further 4 days prior to cremation. Cambodian leaders found time to pay their last respects to the former Prime Minister of Cambodia. He was the first Prime Minister from 1993 to 1997 and the President of the National Assembly from 1998 to 2006. Last Friday, Prime Minister Hun Sen has issued a proclamation announcing the 8th of December as a national day of mourning for Prince Ranariddh and requiring that all ministries, schools, hospitals, military bases, pagodas and the general public fly the Cambodian flag at half-mast. Prince Norodom Ranariddh's remains will also be cremated on Wednesday, the 8th of December. Senate President Se Chum, National Assembly President Heng Samrin, and Prime Minister Hun Sen. They all paid respect to the late Prince Norodom Ranariddh on Monday. The deceased half-brother of King Norodom Sihamoni, Prince Ranariddh died on the 28th of November in France at the age of 77. He succumbed to his illness. Upon arrival on Sunday, his body was embalmed for a further 4 days prior to cremation. Cambodian leaders find time to pay their last respect to the former Prime Minister of Cambodia. He was the first Prime Minister from 1993 to 1997 and the President of the National Assembly from 1998 to 2006. Last Friday, Prime Minister Hun Sen has issued a proclamation announcing the 8th December as a national day of mourning for Prince Ranariddh and requiring that all ministries, schools, hospitals, military bases, pagodas and the general public fly the Cambodian flag at half-mast. Prince Norodom Ranariddh's remains will also be cremated on Wednesday, the 8th of December. Prime Minister Hun Sen has inaugurated National Road 11 in Prey Veng Province on Monday. During the inauguration ceremony, Prime Minister Hun Sen has expressed gratitude to China as Cambodia's friend of steel. On behalf of the Chinese government, Ambassador Wang Wentin has attended the ceremony, announcing more development for Cambodia aided by China. One of them is the factory for COVID-19 vaccine. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
The 96.48 kilometers road's construction started in 2018 through China's concessional loan to Cambodia worth over $94 million. Prime Minister Hun Sen has again reiterated how grateful he is for China's continued support to Cambodia and the friendship between the two nations. Ambassador Wang Wenchen has represented the Chinese government during the ceremony. In his speech, he has announced that Cambodia will soon use locally produced COVID-19 vaccine. He says Chinese vaccine maker Sinopharm is currently in talks with the Cambodian Ministry of Health to open a vaccine factory in Cambodia. This was in response to Prime Minister Hun Sen's request from China almost 3 weeks ago. Apart from the vaccine factory, the Chinese ambassador has also informed that their team is studying the possibility of Cambodia being able to export more agricultural products to China. The Chinese ambassador says a team from the Chinese government will evaluate Cambodia's longan fruit and fish farm to enable Cambodia to export directly to China soon. The evaluation has been agreed to be done online due to the COVID-19 situation. Prime Minister Hun Sen was delighted upon hearing the good news from the Chinese government. In addition, the Prime Minister has also announced that the COVID-19 situation in Cambodia continues to show positive signs. There were only more than 20 of COVID-19 cases discovered in the country for the past few days. Prime Minister Hun Sen says that because of the low number of cases recorded, some treatment centers have to close. However, he has urged Phnom Penh Governor Kong Sreng to build a new treatment facility for COVID-19 patients while taking them out from the Olympic Stadium. He says that stadium must be ready for sports events, especially the Southeast Asian Games, which is scheduled to happen in 2023. The Prime Minister has highlighted the great success of Cambodia's fight against COVID-19. In connection, he has slammed Vietnamese Deputy Defense Minister Nguyen Xuan Xuan for calling Cambodia as a source of contagion to Vietnam. He says the Vietnamese general should apologize to him and to the Cambodian people, adding that what he said is unacceptable. On Sunday, Vietnam found nearly 1,400 cases of COVID-19. Prime Minister Hun Sen has also announced during his speech that he will meet the Foreign Minister of Myanmar, Wonamaung Nguyen, on Tuesday. He has added that the ASEAN has no right to expel any member and that ASEAN's decision is made in the spirit of consensus. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Landmines are a cruel legacy of the troubled times Cambodia has had to endure, and they cause incalculable suffering across the nation. But the future looks brighter with every passing day. There is a concerted push on achieving the target of a Cambodia free of this terrible blight by 2025. The Prime Minister addressed this very issue again this week. On Sunday afternoon, the Prime Minister, Hun Sen, has spoken to the Friends of Mine Action about the 1988 win-win policy of national unity and how the kingdom has moved forward with development partners to gradually set Cambodia free from the threats of landmines and other unexploded ordnance. Prime Minister Hun Sen has thanked donors, development partners and other sectors of society for generous financial support and contributions in the assistance in not only decreasing the number of casualties, but also helping in poverty alleviation and socio-economic rehabilitation. His special gratitude was delivered to national and international operators, especially D-miners, for participating in high-risk activities promoted by the royal government to clear landmines and ERWs. According to the Prime Minister's message, the royal government hopes Cambodia will be mine-free by 2025, following the National Mine Action Strategy 2018 to 2025. The Ministry of Public Works and Transport has announced last Saturday to reopen a border crossing with Thailand in Pasat Province. The border crossing between Cambodia and Thailand is critical in more than one way. It is one of the main arteries for not only trade, but also tourism. It is a border crossing like this that are very important to the economy, especially during COVID. EAC news reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
Minister of Public Works and Transport, Minister Sun Chantol, has made a visit at the Tumo Da International Border in Vial Veng district of Pursat Province bordering Thailand last Saturday. The visit was aimed at opening gates between Cambodia and Thailand to increase trade and tourism cooperation between the two countries, as well as to meet the aspirations of the people in the western provinces and investors who are looking forward to seeing the Tumo Da border turn into the international port of all kinds of goods and tourism. Minister Sun Chantol has stated that infrastructure plans between Cambodian and Thai provinces of Pursat and Trat, respectively, include the construction of immigrant buildings, customs and exercise buildings, joint inspections, parking lots for transit of goods, warehouses, container grounds and administrative buildings, as well as dormitory buildings to open up opportunities for international cooperation and investments. According to the minister, cross-border trade, job creation and tourism attraction aim to boost the family economy and society of both nations. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
The Kingdom of Cambodia has decided to lift the ban on travellers from 10 African countries, replacing it with new measures to enter the country. The announcement was released on Sunday evening by the Ministry of Health, a week after the Health Ministry's decision to ban travellers from the African countries that show cases of the Omicron variant. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the details.
Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Malawi, South Angola, and Zambia. Those were the countries the Cambodian Ministry of Health has decided to ban for traveling into the kingdom. Last Thursday, Prime Minister Hun Sen has ordered the Ministry of Health to consider lifting the ban from those 10 African countries, but with strengthened health measures, such as requiring PCR test. He emphasized that there is nothing to fear with the new variant of COVID-19, as long as there are proper safety health measures in place. In the new announcement, the Ministry of Health revised the health measures by requiring a 7-day quarantine for passengers coming from the 10 African countries mentioned, and others considered as countries of concern. A PCR test confirming that the traveler is negative of COVID-19 will be asked by the ministry. They also still need to undergo rapid test upon arrival. If the test is negative, travelers will proceed to the booked hotel for a week quarantine. If they have not booked the hotel, they are required to deposit $1,000. For those who will test positive, they will proceed to the treatment center. The ministry has also specified that the health insurance is required covering COVID-19 expenses. That is in case the traveler will test positive for COVID-19. If the rapid test shows positive upon arrival, another test will be conducted through PCR testing. Meanwhile, unvaccinated travelers arriving in Cambodia are required to undergo 14 days quarantine. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Now a look at news making international headlines this Monday, 6th of November.
Vaccines don't make you free. This is what thousands of protesters are shouting against COVID-19 measures in Brussels. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Brussels on Sunday to march against vaccines and coronavirus restrictions as Europe remains gripped by a resurgence of COVID-19 infections and national authorities fear demonstrators are becoming more radical. Police have said some 8,000 took part, a sharp decline from the 35,000 estimated in a similar protest 2 weeks ago. Groups of protesters clashed with police as the group reached its destination in the Cinquantenaire Park, near the neighborhood housing European Union institutions. Police officers have used water cannons and fired tear gas against projectile-throwing protesters. In the European Union Quarter, a group of protesters wearing black hoods and chanting "Liberty" have started to throw stones at the police, who reacted with tear gas and water cannons. Demonstrators were protesting rules imposed in October that oblige people to show COVID-19 passes to access bars and restaurants. Belgium's government last Friday has tightened sanitary measures against the pandemic in a bid to contain the surge in cases overwhelming the country's hospitals once again and landing Belgium among the worst-hit countries in Europe. The latest measures include making mask wearing mandatory for children over the age of 6 and closing kindergartens and primary schools from 28th of December. Several protesters, including some accompanied by children, have carried placards with slogans such as "Our children will not be your guinea pigs."
A footage shows deserted Indonesian residential town, barren landscape covered in volcanic ash. Homes were almost completely submerged after Mount Semeru violently erupts on Saturday. Indonesia's Mount Semeru smoldered on Sunday morning, a day after it has erupted, sending hot ash clouds billowing out of it and killing at least 14 and injuring 98, including 2 pregnant women who had suffered burn injuries as the volcano spewed out huge clouds of smoke and ash. Hundreds are displaced in East Java province. The deputy chief of Lumajang district, Indah Masdar, have confirmed the fatalities and injuries in a virtual conference. 10 people were trapped after the eruption and have been evacuated to safety, the country's disaster mitigation agency have said. Around 1,300 families have been evacuated. Hundreds of houses have been totally destroyed. 33 schools have been damaged by the eruption. Officials say the situation at Mount Semeru remains dangerous due to the risk of pyroclastic flows, a mix of ash, rock, and volcanic gases that can be much more dangerous than lava. Mount Semeru is about 12,000 feet high and one of Indonesia's nearly 130 active volcanoes. It has also erupted in January, causing new casualties. In the Sumberwulu area, thick gray ash coated damaged houses, while volunteers tried to turn away motorists who wanted to go back to their homes near Semeru. Heavy rain is expected for the next 3 days, which could complicate evacuation efforts, a meteorological agency official has announced late on Sunday.
Young motocross star among 3 skiers killed in avalanche while trying to ascend a mountain in Austria. Rising sports star Rene Hofer, 19, and 2 friends have been killed in Salzburg province. 8 members of an 11-strong skiing tour group were hit by a 200-yard wide slab of snow on Saturday in the Twing area. Rene Hofer has died in the snow while 2 of his friends were partly buried and able to free themselves, police have said. The 2 were rescued but later died at a hospital in Klagenfurt. Rescuers were able to locate the others with the help of their search devices.
Vietnamese ambassador to Cambodia, Nguyen Hu Trang, has vowed to further develop cooperation with Cambodia. He has met with the Cambodian National Assembly President, Heng Samrin, on Tuesday. He has also praised the royal government's success in the vaccination campaign, which makes Cambodia a safe place for tourists. EAC news reporter Ria Soka has the story.
The newly appointed Vietnamese ambassador to Cambodia, Nguyen Hu Trang, has met with the National Assembly President Heng Samrin on Tuesday morning. The ambassador has praised and congratulated the royal government of Cambodia for its development. He has also lauded Cambodia with its success in the vaccination campaign against COVID-19, which leads the kingdom to great success, specifically being able to fully reopen the country, becoming a safe place for tourists. He has also expressed his gratitude to Cambodia for its support to Vietnam, especially for providing COVID-19 aid. The Vietnamese ambassador has vowed to the National Assembly President Heng Samrin that he would do his utmost to further develop cooperation with Cambodia in the fields of diplomacy, society, economy, trade, agriculture during his diplomatic mission in the kingdom. He says, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, Cambodia and Vietnam's trade has increased steadily, with Cambodia importing more to Vietnam. On his side, the National Assembly President has stated that the role of Nguyen Hu Trang as the ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to Cambodia is very important to enhance the existing friendly relations and good cooperation between the two countries. Cambodia, Vietnam, even better in another level. He has commended the cooperation of the two governments in all fields, bringing benefits to the two nations and its peoples. In addition, National Assembly President Heng Samrin has thanked the government of Vietnam for providing $25 million for the construction of a new administrative building to the National Assembly of Cambodia. They are still in the process of selection construction companies, as many have submitted bids, including Vietnamese companies. He has confirmed that the construction of a new administrative building of the National Assembly, with the help of Vietnam, is scheduled to open in early 2022. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen is scheduled to visit Myanmar early next month. This was confirmed by the Prime Minister's assistant, Ieng Sopalat, during the visit of the Burmese Foreign Minister Wan Moang Lin on Tuesday, as Cambodia will chair the ASEAN in 2022. Prime Minister Hun Sen is aiming to put Myanmar back into the group. EAC news reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen will pay a visit to Myanmar on 7 and 8 January 2022 at the invitation of the current leader of Myanmar, Min Aung Hlaing. Last week, Prime Minister Hun Sen announced that he was ready to travel to Myanmar in the near future, saying that leaving Myanmar out of the ASEAN was a loss of ASEAN's stalemate, which originally had 10 countries. He also says that leaving Myanmar out of the regional group, it does not respect the ASEAN Charter. He emphasized that the ASEAN Charter does not require the expulsion of any member. According to the Prime Minister, these are just some of the thoughts of the future ASEAN chair. He says if the honor of the house itself cannot be organized, what is ASEAN unity, ASEAN middle ground? Cambodia will be the rotating chair of ASEAN in 2022, which will have many issues that Cambodia needs to lead to solve both regionally and globally. Cambodia has twice chaired ASEAN, in 2002 and 2012. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has reaffirmed his plans of staying in power as Prime Minister for more years to come. He says at least 43 years, equal to King Ponyayat, also known as Barum Morichir II. The Prime Minister announced his desire to serve for many more years during the inauguration ceremony of the National Road No. 11 in Phra Vinh Province on Monday.
Hướng hôn mà nay dưới ở số 3 ngày đây đúng không? Hôn mà nay chỉ bay cái chuôn môi, không chồng nào bay cái chuôn để vô ròn đây. Đại miền ca control phía bắc của bắc luôn.
Last Thursday, Prime Minister announced that he is fully backing his eldest son, Hun Manet, to be included as the prime ministerial candidate. However, he clarified that it will not happen soon, adding that there are 3 more prime ministerial candidates to be considered. The Prime Minister has also reminded that on the 14th of January next year, it will be the 37th anniversary of his tenure as Prime Minister of Cambodia. He has stressed at least 10 more years will be needed to surpass King Ponyayat. King Ponyayat resigned in the first half of the 15th century, historically known as a valiant king who had recaptured Angkor from Siam, as well as the king who established Phnom Penh's capitals of importance. However, according to his announcement, he was asked to advance the transfer of his post to Hun Manet, but Prime Minister Hun Sen answered it is not possible to promote Hun Manet as he is not of the correct age to take leadership, and Hun Sen reflects that his work as leader for the nation needs to be completed.
On Sunday, the permanent mission of the Kingdom of Cambodia has delivered a statement to the United Nations office in Geneva, Switzerland. The statement stresses diverted opinions on remarks made on the 3rd of December by the spokesman of the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, Rupert Colville. Rupert Colville's declarations were regarding the nature of an investigation into crime-related suspects and a handful of activists. EAC news reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
Cambodia's permanent mission to the United Nations, An So Khun, has dismissed allegations from the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights about the human rights situation in the country. The statement released was in response to OHCHR's spokesperson Rupert Colville. The permanent mission's answer to OHCHR says that their statement about Cambodian is misleading, politicized, selective, and prejudiced. The response statement stresses that OHCHR is under the obligations to respect sovereignty and domestic jurisdiction of UN member states. At first, the permanent mission stresses that Cambodian authorities have never taken any crimes reports lightly, with all investigations being deeply examined until the suspects are arrested and their crimes confessed, facing a commission. The statement has also requested OHCHR to send, in any case, concrete counter-proof of a misleading investigation, adding that it is expected from all UN agencies genuine cooperation without hidden agenda and interferences of internal affairs. The Cambodian permanent missions have denounced the spokesperson's Colville's statement as repeated attempts to politicize the issue, clarifying that in Cambodia, an affiliation with a political party has never been a license to break the law with impunity. It has stressed that Cambodia's penal code was crafted with the assistance of Western experts, with defendants having full opportunity to be heard, including the right to counsel, and to disprove the indictment as part of the rights to due process. The statement concludes that instead of targeting domestic affairs of a foreign state, the OHCHR should have devoted scarce resources to address a worrying trend of human rights challenges, such as hate speech, disinformation, and incitement, including vaccines discrimination disguised under the freedom of expression. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
In a move to show collective respect to the late Prince Norodom Ranariddh, all karaoke clubs and bars across the country are ordered to close to mourn the Prince on Wednesday, the 8th of December. This is to pay tribute to the late Prince Ranariddh, who had served the Kingdom of Cambodia for many long years. EAC news reporter Kong Se-po has the story.
The Ministry of Tourism has advised the owners or managers of entertainment clubs such as KTVs, disco clubs, and beer garden businesses to suspend trade for a day. This is to join the national mourning period for the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh. All ministries, school, hospital, and all civil servants of the armed forces and pagoda are required to raise the flag to half-mast. The ministry also advised other businesses owners, such as restaurants, to suspend alcohol sale on that day. It has also been stated that all national and private radio and television stations must suspend their broadcasts that are entertainment-based in order to pay their respect to the late Prince Norodom Ranariddh. Prince Norodom Ranariddh died at the age of 77 in France on the morning of 28 November. He was born on 2nd January 1944 as the second son of Prince Rodam Sihanouk and his wife Pat Kanyol. He was the first prime minister from 1993 to 1997 and was the president of the National Assembly from 1998 to 2006. His body is being laid at his palace in Phnom Penh, Phnom Penh from 5 December and will be cremated on Wednesday. Kong's report, EAC News.
The Phria Sihanouk Provincial Police Commission is conducting a manhunt for the assailant behind the killing of a Chinese national in Phria Sihanouk province. The victim was found dead on Saturday with several gunshot wounds. EAC News reporter Kong Srepor has the story.
Phria Sihanouk police team is pursuing the manhunt operation of the suspect behind the murder of a 21-year-old Chinese man in Blue Sky Beret Village 5, Sihanoukville. The victim was found dead on Saturday was identified as Jack Mu Nai. Police found several gunshot wounds on his legs and thigh. 3 bullet casings were also found on the crime scene. Phria Sihanouk Provincial Police Commissioner Major General Chun Naran says that he already ordered his team to conduct a manhunt operation against the perpetrator. The police are also still investigating about the background of the victim, which could lead to the possible identification of the suspect. The victim's body was taken to the provincial referral hospital while waiting for the relative to claim. Kong's report, EAC News.
The United States has announced on Monday it will not send government officials to the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. China, in return, has pledged unspecified countermeasures against any such diplomatic boycott. President Joe Biden has declared last month that he was considering such a diplomatic boycott amid criticism of China's human rights record, including what Washington says is genocide against the minority Muslims in its western region of Xinjiang.
It's confirmed White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has announced that the Biden administration will not send any diplomatic or official representation to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games. She says this is due to China's ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in the Xinjiang and other human rights abuses. However, she highlights that the athletes on Team USA have the government's full support. Joe Biden has told Chinese President Xi Jinping standing up for human rights is in the Americans' DNA. USA says it has a fundamental commitment to promoting human rights, and it feels strongly in a position and will continue to take actions to advance human rights in China and beyond.
Everybody can call it whatever they want to call it. I would just remind you that often when you use diplomatic boycott, that phrase, that brings people back to 1980, and we are not. The athletes will be participating. We will be rooting for the athletes from home. I am an Olympics-obsessed person, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But I think this is just an indication that it cannot be business as usual, that not sending a diplomatic delegation sends that message. That does not mean, I think this was your question, just to come back to it, that is the end of the concerns we will raise about human rights abuses in Xinjiang.
She has added that they have already taken a number of steps.
We've been a leader in the world in leading actions through the G7. We're obviously also working with Congress, but this is just sending a message that given these human rights abuses, we cannot proceed with business as usual.
Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Zhao Lijian has said earlier in Beijing that those calling for a boycott are grandstanding and should stop, so as not to affect the dialogue and cooperation between China and the United States in important areas. He emphasizes no one cares if politicians come to Beijing Winter Olympics or not, amid a report that the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison is also considering a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. The United States is next due to host an Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles, raising the question of how China might respond in the interim.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, the 7th of December.
Supporters of French far-right presidential candidate Eric Zemmour have thrown punches in chairs at several protesters wearing anti-racism t-shirts during his first political rally on Sunday. An identified woman protester with blood on her face says that the protesters had worn shirts with the words "No to Racism." Their presence on Sunday was to show that not everyone agrees with Zemmour. They want to pose in a peaceful way. They wore "No to Racism" t-shirt that she took off to avoid being hit again. She further says she did not expect it that way. She ignored the risk like the other anti-racists who were there because they thought they were in a democracy where one could say what she wanted to say without physical consequences. She has added that they were peaceful militants. Zemmour has promised a reconquest against decades of decline during his nearly an hour and a half long speech, the first he has given since declaring his candidacy. He said he was calling the party Reconquest, a name that evokes the history period known as Reconquista, when Christian forces drove Muslim rulers from the Iberian Peninsula. With echoes of Donald Trump's first campaign for U.S. president, Zemmour has promised to slash immigration and taxes to cheers from flag-waving supporters that organizers put around 10,000. Zemmour, who has been convicted for inciting racial hatred, is the main challenger to longtime far-right figure Marine Le Pen for a place in the second runoff round of next April's election, most likely against President Emmanuel Macron.
The biggest mountain on the island of Java thundered to life Saturday, ejecting a mushroom of volcanic ash into the sky and raining hot mud as thousands of panicked people fled their homes. Rescue operations ongoing to retrieve bodies of Indonesia volcano victims. The challenge of the evacuation operation was mainly because the bodies were trapped under logs and rocks and the soil is still hot. With a few spades and bare hands, rescuers have dug up 3 bodies buried underneath blankets of volcanic ash on Monday. A search and rescue official has reported that 3 bodies were among the family of 9 that went missing after the dramatic eruption of Mount Semeru on Saturday. Indonesia's Disaster Mitigation Agency has said in a statement Monday that the death toll had risen to 15. Authorities are expecting for more bodies, while 27 people remain missing. More than 100 people had suffered injuries from the eruption, mostly burns. Fresh volcanic activity on Monday has hampered search efforts for survivors. It spewed more ash, forcing rescue teams to pull out from some areas because it could endanger evacuation teams. In addition, the head of the Semeru Volcano Observatory, Liz Wanto, has warned people to keep a safe distance from the mountain amid reports that anxious residents had returned to their homes to check on belongings and livestock.
Health authorities have announced on Monday that nearly 70 nurses and doctors working in the intensive care unit at a Spanish hospital have tested positive for COVID-19 after attending a Christmas party. The Andalusian regional government has confirmed 68 medics at the University Regional Hospital in Malaga have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. Health authorities have said they were investigating the source of the infection, but has added that all 68 attended the Christmas party on 1st December, at which 173 people were present. Those who contracted COVID-19 all had antigen tests on the 3rd booster vaccinations before attending the party. A possible source of the infection could have been a large meal for hospital staff, but those infected have shown mild symptoms. Health authorities in Andalusia have recommended staff at other public and private hospitals not to attend Christmas or big parties yet. 4 cases of the Omicron variant have meanwhile been confirmed in Spain's Balearic Islands. A father has arrived in the Balearic Island recently and has infected 2 members of his family, and a 4th person recently arrived in Spain from South Africa. Spain's Ministry of Health has confirmed a total of 9 cases of the Omicron variant.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, please, please wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni and Queen Mother Norodom Moniniert Sihanouk have paid their last respect to Prince Norodom Ranariddh on Wednesday. A ceremonial procession was held in Phnom Penh on the National Day of Mourning, before the prince's body was cremated. The royal government's top leaders have also shown their last respects. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
ព្រះសពចាប់ដើម
នៅក្នុងខណៈនេះគឺកងទ័ពជក់កំពុងតែរៀបចំព្រះវិធីសង្កត់ប្រសពពីរថយន្តបុស្តិបុកឬយ៉ាងរថយន្តបុស្តិបុកដើម្បីឡើងមកលើមេសម្គាល់រួចដើម្បីដែលសម្គាល់ស្រេចបាច់ហើយការអញ្ជើញមកដល់របស់សម្ដេចស្ដេចឈុំប្រធានព្រឹទ្ធសភាសម្ដេចអគ្គមហាជាចក្រេហេតុរិនប្រធានរដ្ឋសភាបណ្ដាអគ្គមហាសេនាបតីតេជោហ៊ុនសែននាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីនឹងមកអញ្ជើញមកដល់ជាបន្តបន្ទាប់ហើយនៅក្នុងកម្មវិធីផងដែរពេលវេលាម៉ោង 9 ការយាង
His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni has paid his last respect to his half-brother Prince Norodom Ranariddh on Wednesday morning. The king was accompanied by the Queen Mother Norodom Mininiet Sihanouk. The royal government's top leaders were also present during the ceremony of the day of mourning. Senate President Saichum, National Assembly President Heng Samrin, and Prime Minister Hun Sen all attended. A ceremonial procession was held on Wednesday early morning from the mortuary in the capital's Town Pen district, where the remains of Prince Ranariddh was laid for 3 days to Wat Butung Batay for the cremation. The 8th of December has been declared by the royal government of Cambodia as the National Day of Mourning for the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh. All ministries, institutions, and pagodas are ordered to put the flag on half-mast. Entertainment businesses are instructed to suspend operation, while selling alcoholic beverages are prohibited.
Cambodia จะที่สัญญาเชื่อนะนี่ตบได้นับปุ่มปุ่มของเป็นนะแต่ได้ต้องกระดูกไทยของเราคนตัดอาเซียนมุขบุกาที่อายุวันนักสุขะสุยะสบายเตียนเสียหลาย
នៅក្នុងឱកាសនេះព្រះកណ្ដាលជាអម្ចាស់ជាពលិបោកជាទីគោរពសក្ការៈដល់ព្រះភូមិផុតនិងមិនព្រះមហាក្សត្រីបានយាងនិវត្តន៍ទៅកាន់ព្រះបរមរាជវាំងវិញហើយជាបន្តជាការអញ្ជើញនិវត្តន៍វិញរបស់សម្ដេចពីបុលសេនាសនៈ
เ
The Minister of Foreign Affairs to Myanmar, U Wannamong, has concluded his meeting here in Cambodia. The meeting was hailed as being both beneficial and constructive, in a time when rising tensions in Myanmar are a global consideration. Myanmar, though, is very much an ally of Cambodia, and Cambodia acts as a conduit to continued political discussions with Myanmar on the world stage. Mun Wang Lin, Myanmar's foreign minister, paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Hun Sen, which featured an exchange of views on bilateral relations and recent regional development. He also visited Cambodia's foreign minister, Prak Sakhonn. There was also a candid discussion on how to support efforts in addressing the Myanmar crisis, as well as enhancing ASEAN's centrality and solidarity. While appreciating the result of the ASEAN Chair meeting in April, Myanmar also looked forward to welcoming and coordinating with the special envoy of the ASEAN Chair in fulfilling the 5-point consensus, including improving humanitarian relief delivery. The discussion extended into various ASEAN matters as well as bilateral cooperation. Myanmar's foreign minister congratulated Cambodia as the incoming chair of ASEAN in 2022 and expressed full support for Cambodia's priorities and endorsing the joint effort to fight against COVID-19. In the joint effort to fight against COVID-19, Mun Wang Lin appreciated Cambodia's timely assistance in cash and kind, which contributed to Myanmar's effort to control and mitigate the severe impacts of COVID-19 to the country. Both sides agreed to enhance works in advancing cooperation on areas such as trade, economic, people-to-people exchanges, as well as cooperation on multilateral fora. There was further development when Prime Minister accepted an invitation to visit Myanmar on the 7th and 8th of January this year. The Vice President of Cambodia's People's Party, Sa Keng, has said that he respects Prime Minister Hun Sen's decision to select a future Prime Minister. In a message on Tuesday, Sa Keng, who is also the Minister of the Interior, says he has always respected and supported the decision of the General Assembly and the convention of the Cambodian People's Party. EAC News reporter Kong Srey-Por has the story.
CPP Vice President Sa Keng says he respects the decision of Prime Minister Hun Sen to select a candidate for Prime Minister in the future. He has added that he will also abide the decision of the Cambodian People's Party, which has Prime Minister Hun Sen as its president. Sa Keng's message followed the announcement of the Prime Minister last week, saying that he is fully backing his son Hun Manet to be next in line as the future leader of the royal government to be his successor. Prime Minister Hun Sen later said that apart from his eldest son, he has 3 other prime ministerial candidates in mind, but did not divulge any names. The Prime Minister has also said that he wanted to serve more years in the royal government of Cambodia, at least the same level with King Punyayat, who served for 43 years. Next month, Prime Minister Hun Sen will celebrate his 37 years in power as the Prime Minister of Cambodia. Kung Srey-Por, EAC News.
The Australia-Cambodia Cooperation for Equitable Sustainable Services in the Kingdom has been working hard to fast-track programs benefiting persons with disabilities. On Wednesday, officials from Access, its partners and Secretary-General of the Disability Action Group, Aim Chan Makata, have met to evaluate the improvements since the Access program was established in 2018. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
The Australia-Cambodian Cooperation for Equitable Sustainable Services program is a 5-year, from 2018-2023, initiative undertaken with the financial support of the Government of Australia, provided through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. It is working in close partnership with the Royal Government of Cambodia's ministries and departments, namely Ministry of Women's Affairs, Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation, Ministry of Economy and Finance, and Disability Action Council. The access programs aim to contribute to the key priorities of the National Action Plan to prevent violence against women and the National Disability Strategic Plan. Secretary-General of the Disability Action Council, M. Chan Makara, says many of the major achievements of the Disability Action Council under the Access Program, such as counseling, improved center management, better social protection, and opportunities for sub-national authorities and civil society organizations to work on disability and gender and disability issues in community investment plans and strengthen social accountability as well as assist victims of crime. He says violence is based on gender for the disability environment as well. He has added that in addition to this assistance under the Access Program, Cambodia has achieved the legal framework, policies, and plans for people with disabilities and helped to allocate government resources to people with disabilities, as well as Cambodia has achieved a coordination mechanism in disability sectors as well. The Secretary-General of the Disability Action Council highlights that with the help of Access, 5 of 25 targeted provinces, namely Kampong Cham, Kampong Speu, Siem Reap, Battambang, and Tabong Khmer, have been assisted, creating a census of people with disabilities in 2019 and in conducting a national health census in 2021. Currently, under the auspices of Access Australia, more than 4,000 job opportunities have been created for people with disabilities. He says, with the help of Australia, the allocation of the government's budget for the protection of women increased by 48% between 2019 and 2021, and the disability budget for non-staff expenditures of the Ministry of Social Affairs almost increased 20% by 2021 as funding cuts to help victims of COVID-19 disease, helping over 60,000 people with disabilities to receive financial support for poor and vulnerable families during the fight against the COVID-19. Over the last 3 years, Australia committed over $10 million through the Access Program to improve the sustainability, quality, and inclusiveness of services for persons with disabilities and for women affected by gender-based violence. Recently, the government of Australia has also committed an additional more than $7 million through the Access Program for another 2 years to make it a 5-year program. Access Program logic has been updated to reflect the contribution of the program to the Cambodian government's COVID-19 response and recovery efforts, including its priorities on social protection. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
The US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have spoken for roughly 2 hours by video conference on Tuesday. Their virtual conference was an effort to defuse a growing military crisis along the Ukrainian border, where tens of thousands of Russian troops have massed in what the United States officials say could be a prelude to an all-out invasion.
The meeting was one of the biggest foreign policy tests of Joe Biden's presidency to date, with consequences for the stability of Europe, the credibility of American threats, and the future of a country the United States has spent years trying to defend from Putin's aggression. Ukraine's fate still hangs in the balance. The leaders' video conference did not resolve the crisis along Ukraine's borders, and neither the Kremlin nor the White House reported substantial progress. The White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has said after the meeting that Biden had offered Putin the choice between a diplomatic solution and the severe economic and political consequences that would follow a Russian invasion of Ukraine. But he did not say whether Putin had made any commitments. Putin is standing firm. Whether Biden's threats will deter the Russian leader from invading Ukraine is unclear, but Putin was not conciliatory. A Kremlin readout of the meeting said that Putin blamed the tensions in the West, which he said was building up its military capability in and around Ukraine. And Putin demanded legal guarantees that NATO would not expand eastward toward Russia's borders or deploy offensive weapons systems in Ukraine.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Wednesday, 8th of December.
Firefighters hampered by high winds in operation to douse a stricken ship carrying timber off Gothenburg on Sweden's west coast. The fire has started on Saturday and was still not under control and continues to burn for more than 4 days. The Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency have reported it had sent 2 helicopters while several other authorities and organizations continues fighting the fire. Firefighting efforts using 2 large Swedish Coast Guard ships along with private tugs hired by the ship owners continues. Although the fire continues to burn with undiminished strength, the flames are reported to be contained to the forward portion of the ship and limited to the timber cargo and not the ship itself. The work would continue for several days. The crew of the Almirante Storni remain on board, and there is now discussion about whether or not to try and take the bunker fuel from the stricken vessel. The 9-year-old 31,796 deadweight ton handy-bulk carrier is managed by Germany's NSC and sails under the Liberian flag.
Iraqi military says a motorcycle rigged with explosives has caused a strong, massive blast, which killed at least 4 people and wounded dozens. The blast took place near a main hospital, setting fire to at least 1 vehicle and damaged a minibus. Bomb attacks in southern Iraq, where the bulk of the country's oil is produced, are relatively rare, particularly since the defeat of the ISIL armed group in 2017. There has been an increase in political instability in Iraq following the October 10 parliament elections, which saw populist leader Muqtada al-Sadr emerge as the biggest winner. Shia armed factions loyal to Iran, which lost around 2/3 of their parliamentary seats, have rejected the results of the election, alleging fraud.
UK commits almost $400 million to put a stop on drugs trade and to tackle drug gangs and boast rehabilitation for users, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced Monday at a police raid. The government has promised the largest ever investment in drug treatment and recovery as part of a far-reaching new 10-year strategy for tackling addiction and reducing crime in England. The cross-department plan comes as drug-related deaths in England and the rest of the UK have reached a record high in 2020, with deaths linked to cocaine and opiates rising sharply over the past decade. The strategy will be underpinned by almost $1 billion investment in treatment programs in the National Health Service and in the prison service, taking the total treatment and recovery spent to almost $3 billion over 3 years. There will be also more than $300 million investment to crack down on supply chains in criminal gangs profiting from the trade in illegal drugs.
I take the view that it's a long time really since you've heard a government say that drugs, Class A drugs, are bad and bad for society, bad for opportunity, bad for kids growing up in this country. That's my view, and I think it's something that we can tackle and we can deal with. You've got to be realistic. You've got to be humane. You've got to be compassionate. You've got to recognise that overwhelmingly the problem is caused by 300,000 people whose lives are simply chaotic, who are torn apart by their own addiction. You've got to help them. You've got to do rehab, but you've also got to come down very, very hard on the county lines gangs, and that's what we're doing.
Johnson believes that the strategy would tackle 300,000 problem drug users who account for about half of burglaries, robberies, thefts, and murders. The investment will see a crackdown on drugs gangs with an aim to dismantle 2,000 so-called country lines, networks used to drive the drug trades in rural areas of the country. The measures make part of the government's 10-year drugs strategy published on Monday, designed to address both the supply and demand for drugs.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has decided to name the new Phnom Penh International Airport as Dek Cho Krong Te Khmer International Airport. He says this is to emphasize the strength of the monarchy in Cambodia. The Prime Minister emphasizes that it will be a world-class airport and is one of the accomplishments of the royal government that is being protected by the Cambodian People's Party. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
Prime Minister Hun Sen says that the name Dek Cho Tak Mau International Airport stands how strong the monarchy is in Cambodia. He explains that the word Techo refers to the commander Techo Mias Techo Yort that has a long history in the territory of Kandal province. The construction of the new Phnom Penh International Airport, called the Techo Takmao International Airport, started in 2019 with an investment of 10% from the royal government of Cambodia and 90% from Overseas Cambodian Investment Corporation. The new airport is worth about $1.5 billion. It is scheduled to be completed in 2023, with inauguration scheduled in 2025. That year, it will be fully operational. It is expected to accommodate about 30 million passengers a year. Prime Minister Hun Sen says that this airport will be a major source of economic booster for Kandal province as well as the whole country. It is designed as a 4F class airport, targeted to be ninth of the largest airport in the world. In his speech, Prime Minister Hun Sen has encouraged investors to invest in Cambodia, especially its own citizens. He even urged the United States to impose more sanctions on Cambodian officials that are considered as human rights abusers, corrupt, and destructive of democracy through its democratic law. The Prime Minister says in that way, those Cambodian officials will not be able to invest their money in the United States, and they will be forced to invest in their own country. That will lead to progress in Cambodia, just like what is happening at the moment. Currently, there are 3 senior government officials who have been sanctioned by the United States to freeze their assets, including Bodyguard Commander Hing Bunhieng, Navy Commander Tio Win, and Director General of the General Department of Technical Equipment Ministry of National Defense, Chao Pirun. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has told the opposition party to watch for Cambodian People's Party meeting in a fortnight. One of the important topics during their convention will be the selection of the next prime ministerial candidates. The Prime Minister was speaking during his inspection at the new Phnom Penh International Airport in Kandal Strung District, Kandal Province on Thursday. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochan has the story.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that the Cambodian People's Party is a unified party with sufficient human resources that thinks about the future of Cambodia. The Prime Minister told the opposition party to watch for the unity of the CPP during the meeting of the Central Committee of the People's Party on 24th December, including the next prime ministerial candidacy that has been discussed in previous days. He has stated a meeting was held at his house with other CPP leaders on Wednesday, naming Minister of Interior Saw King, Permanent Deputy Prime Minister Min Samon, Minister for National Defense Thia Ban. He has clarified that they did not talk about the next election in 2023. However, the Prime Minister says that at some point they have to look at the real situation and be sustainable. He told other groups not to worry. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that they will continue to do what they started from father to son. He emphasized that the achievements of the royal government are protected by the CPP. The CPP was founded on 28 June 1951 by Cambodian nationalists to liberate Cambodia from French colonization. It is the oldest party in the kingdom and led the struggle to liberate the Cambodian people from the Khmer Rouge regime in 1979. The party is currently led by Prime Minister Hun Sen with 2 vice presidents, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King and Senate President Sai Chum, and President of the National Assembly Heng Samrin as the honorary president of the party. The CPP Central Committee currently has 837 members. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has vowed to reunite the 10 ASEAN members. Cambodia will start chairing the ASEAN next month, with Prime Minister Hun Sen aiming to reinstate Myanmar into the group. The Prime Minister was speaking on Thursday's visit at the new Phnom Penh International Airport, under construction in Kandal Province.
Prime Minister Hun Sen says that leaving Myanmar outside of ASEAN would make the country more isolated. He has added that he is trying his best to find a solution in bringing Myanmar back to ASEAN, helping them abide by the ASEAN Charter. The Prime Minister highlights that he is committed to restoring the spirit of ASEAN by trying to bring Myanmar back to the ASEAN summit under its charter. He has said that his decision to bring Myanmar back has been criticised by some people, but he is committed to working with the leaders of Myanmar to find a solution. He emphasised a firm statement saying that if ASEAN is only 9 members instead of 10, it is unconstitutional and ASEAN is gone. Cambodia will take over the rotating chairmanship of ASEAN on 1st of January next year. As the ASEAN chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen is scheduled to pay an official visit to Myanmar on the 7th to 8th of January. The khmer Special Educational High School has more than 200 students with disabilities, such as autism, Down syndrome, and dementia. On Thursday morning, the royal government, represented by the Minister of Social Affairs Vong Sawt, as well as the Secretary-General of the Disabilities Action Council, Aim Chan Makata, donated food and financial aid for the final repairs to the school buildings that are currently undergoing construction. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
In a colorful building with ramps for children on wheelchairs, playground, and extra care from teachers and assistants, the khmer Special Education High School has received the presence of officials from the royal government, such as Minister of Social Affairs Vong Sawt and the Secretary-General of the Disability Action Council, M. Chan Makara. During his speech, the Minister of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation and Chairman of the DAC Disability Action Council has thanked and appreciated parents, guardians and teachers who take care of children with autism, dementia and Down syndrome. He has stressed that children with disabilities need extra care and high patience. The minister has stated he was speaking on behalf of Prime Minister Hun Sen regarding the 23rd Cambodian Day of Persons with Disabilities and the 39th International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is observed under the theme of Leadership and Participation of Persons with Disabilities for Rehabilitation after the COVID-19 crisis into an environmentally friendly, comfortable and sustainable society. Minister Vong Sawt has also brought greetings from the President of the Cambodian Red Cross, Bun Rani Hun Sen, both of whom Prime Minister Hun Sen and his wife have always paid attention to the well-being of the disabilities of all kinds across the country. It was announced during the ceremony by the Minister of Social Affairs, representing Prime Minister's will, has donated $10,000 to contribute with the final constructions of the khmer Special Education High School. According to the Director of Hope for the Community and also the Director of khmer Special Education High School, at present, 205 students with special needs are studying in the school, while 90 other children are waiting for the final repairs of the school's buildings, which are currently under construction. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
The pandemic of COVID-19 has hit different sectors of society hard, but the cyclo drivers of Phnom Penh especially have struggled to sustain their livelihoods over the past years. The Cyclo Conservation and Careers Association, along with Local for Local, a youth-run food drive initiative, as well as Prudential Cambodia, are associations willing to help the cyclo riders. They have come up with creative ideas to help and conserve the livelihood of the riders, such as promoting pantries on top of cyclos, to provide food for those in need, as well as exhibiting designs of futuristic cyclos made by Khmer artists. Yuri Matosko hit the streets interviewing a cyclo rider and the director of the CCCA to understand their background and what they have done to conserve these unique careers.
A profession dated back from the French protectorate of Indochina has been decreasing with risk of never existing anymore due to the rising of other transport modes, such as motorbikes and tuk-tuks. According to the Cycle Conservation and Careers Association, there were more than 1,500 cyclos in Phnom Penh in 1999. The number has dropped to nearly 300 cyclos remaining active in the city. The CCCA was created seeking to support cyclo drivers by providing access to hygiene and health, education and housing. Currently, the association supports around 280 cyclo drivers between the ages of 32 and 82 in Phnom Penh. EAC News have interviewed CCCA Director Ng Sambad, who explained more about the work of the association.
This association we created in 2009, but before created this association, we create cyclo project and we have study about 4 types of people are motorbike taxi, cyclo taxi, youth in the community and scavengers. After the study, we saw that cyclo taxi have more high risk and need than other type. That's why we create this association to invite them for education, such as HIV, AIDS, side effect of smoking, cigarette, traffic law, their personal hygiene, and we also teach them an English language. Until 2009, we created the CCCA, an informal occupation at the Ministry of Interior, and then we started to providing other service like health service, livelihood service for them. We focus more on tourist service. Before COVID crisis, in Cambodia, the cyclo service is tourist service. On every day, they can earn 20,000 to 30,000 real as an income for a day, apart from their spending. So that's why we continue to prepare the cyclo tour for them, and then they come here, we give them free service. They can shower here, they can sleep here, because more of them are homeless, coming from other provinces. They came to Phnom Penh by riding cyclo and they sleep on cyclo at night, but during day they can come to sleep here. Before we don't have this service, but now we do.
He told more about the cyclo pantry activity, consisting of containers carried out on top of the cyclos where donations can be given as well as taken by people in need.
For the cyclo pantry, we have called a mobile community container. Nowadays, we have a divide for 10 different places around Central Market, Rojongwa Bridge, Night Market, in front of Royal Palace, in front of Wop Bottom, Bang King Kong, Tul Tumpung Market, Orisay Market, Depot Market, and Kadanpi. They have one cyclo pantry in each place as charity given by the local for local app that we put in from 9 a.m. to 10 and 30 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. following above location. For this app, why did we create it? Actually, we never have this app before, and this is the first time that the app exists in Cambodia, especially in Phnom Penh city. In particular, why Tang Hong Hao created this app? Because when he studied at an American school, he saw the container which have the dry food and other food in it. When he is hungry and doesn't have money, he can take those food to eat with only inside, such as school and other public places. So now we bring this style to Cambodia by providing food and many other stuff to put in the container delivery by cyclo for poor people and homeless people that are in need. Before, we contain right around 60 packets a day, from 100 to 60 packets, because we also low budget, so we can order only 60 packets. We try to did our best as we could. Now we couldn't contain right in packet, but we have noodle, water, soy sauce, alcohol spray, face mask, and other stuff providing from charity to those 10 different places.
On November, the association has come up with another great idea, to partner with the Cambodian Children's Fund for an art competition, consisting of children and youth drawing futuristic designs of cyclos. It's a movement to imagine a Phnom Penh and a Cambodian in the future with the conservation of the cyclo career. The exhibition, called Futuristic Cyclo Art Exhibition, can be seen online, clicking at the Facebook page Local for Local, as well as the physical exhibition at the factory. Singh Vanak took the top prizing, winning cash prize of $700, while Judy Sak Meng won the second place and Toby West the third runner-up medal for their drawings, winning $500 and $300 respectively. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
The royal government of Cambodia is determined to speed up the demining process, as stated by the first Deputy Chief of Mine Action Authority and Senior Minister Lee Tush. He has thanked the royal government and its partners' commitment to clearing mines and other explosives in the country. The Senior Minister has visited Rattanakkiri, and Stung Treng provinces, evaluating the demining process in the kingdom. EAC news reporter Kong Srepo has the story.
The first vice president of the Cambodian Mine Authority, Lee Thuch, has praised the contribution of donors, especially organizations working directly on demining explosive remnants in Cambodia. He says the miner not only contributed to saving the life of the people, but also helping the society reach its goal of speeding up the clearing operation. In Ratanakiri province, the senior minister Lee Thuch has evaluated the progress of Mine Advisory Group together with the British ambassador to Cambodia, Tina Bradshaw. He says the government is working with its partner-friendly countries and charitable organizations, including the United Kingdom, in order to accelerate the removal of landmines and explosive remnants of war from Cambodia. He has added that it will also reduce the risk of landmines and unexploded minimum ordnance and will eliminate all landmines from Cambodia by 2025 as its target. The British ambassador has said that the United Kingdom as well as other donors are committed to continue helping clear mines in the Cambodian territory. Bradshaw has stressed that the royal government of the United Kingdom has provided assistance to the Mine Advisory Group in joining the royal government of Cambodia clearing mines, providing safe land and improving the life of people in rural areas. She says they also help in providing various educational messages with the aim of increasing understanding landmines and unexploded ordnance, hoping that the people who receive the message will spread the word to the families and friends. Record from January 1979 to July 2021, there were more than 60,000 explosive device casualties recorded, of which over 51,000 were mine victims. More than 13,000 were explosive remnants of war. The 30% were killed, 56% injured, and 14% were crippled. The first vice president of the Cambodian Mine Authority, Lee Thuch, has also visited Stung Treng province. He was leading a team assessing the post-clearing community development in Sesan District, Stung Treng Province, in collaboration with Japan Mine Action Service. He has commended JMA's support for the mining and on-site development with the aim of improving the livelihood of local people after cleanup. In collaboration with CMAC, JMAS has started its 3-year project in Stung Treng Province, February 2021, with funding to support the mining and community development work, such as training people about agriculture about $600,000 per year. JMAS has been supporting mine, clearance, and community development in Cambodia since 2002, including the rehabilitation of infrastructure, the construction of schools, and the provision of agriculture technical skill in 4 provinces, Battambang, Banteay Meanchey, Kampong Thom, and Stung Treng. Kong Srepo, EAC News.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Thursday, 9th of December.
At least 31 people, mostly members of Mwingi Catholic Church Choir, have drowned when a bus on its way to a wedding was swept away by fast-moving waters while trying to cross a flooded river in Kenya. The choir members were to perform at the wedding to solemnize the marriage union of the parents of one of the members. The footage shows their driver has stopped and talked to some locals and was close to the other side. Kitui County Governor Charity Ngilo have said the driver of the bus attempted to navigate a submerged bridge through the surging waters of the Inzui River about 200 kilometers east of the capital, Nairobi, when the bus was swept beneath the churning currents. The governor has noted that the bodies of 31 people have been found so far during ongoing rescue efforts. She said 12 people have managed to escape from drowning, including 4 children. But sadly, most aboard the stricken bus were unable to escape before it was swallowed by the muddy tide. Locals gathered at the scene were heard screaming in distress as some ran to try and rescue survivors.
Russia launches a Russian-Japanese crew to space, and the Soyuz spacecraft carrying Japanese billionaire en route to the International Space Station. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa has arrived at the International Space Station on Wednesday aboard a Soyuz cargo ship piloted by Russian cosmonaut Alexander Mishustin. Maezawa, a 46-year-old fashion magnate and art collector, has been training outside of Moscow in recent months before becoming the first space tourist to travel to the ISS in more than a decade. The billionaire has launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, along with his assistant Yoso Hirano, who will document the journey, as well as Russian cosmonaut Alexander Mishustin. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa has said earlier he could barely contain his excitement before blasting off to the International Space Station in a prelude to a more ambitious trip around the moon with Elon Musk's SpaceX planned in 2023. Maezawa has become a household name in Japan thanks to his penchant for private jets, celebrity girlfriends, and cash giveaways to Twitter followers in a country known for its conformist corporate culture. He plans to upload footage from his flight to his YouTube channel, which has 795,000 followers. He has called on his supporters to give him 100 ideas of things to do in space and has said he plans to play badminton aboard the ISS. The cost of Maezawa's trip was not disclosed, but some reports have put the price tag for tourist space flights as high as $50 million.
And India's top military commander, Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat, including his wife, were among 13 people killed on Wednesday when the military helicopter they were traveling in crashed in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. It was confirmed by the Air Force. They were en route from Air Force Base in Solur and was heading for Wellington Town, less than 100 kilometers away, where General Rawat was due to visit the Defense Services Staff College when the Russian-made Mi-17V5 helicopter came down near the town of Kannur. Only one of the 14 people on board survived and was in hospital with injuries. The sole survivor of the crash was a captain working at the DSSC. The 63-year-old Rawat was appointed as India's first Chief of Defense Staff by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government in late 2019. The position was set up with the aim of integrating India's three military services, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. General Rawat had been in charge of a range of operations, including in Indian-administered Kashmir. The Indian Air Force said it had ordered an investigation into the accident, which happened in foggy weather. A Cabinet Security Committee is holding an emergency session chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On board with General Rawat and his wife were 7 other military passengers and 5 crew members, including the pilot. Rescue efforts were hampered due to the crash site's hilly location, which is thick with vegetation. Although the Mi-17V5 is among the most sophisticated military transport helicopters, India's aging Air Force fleet is often blamed for a high number of crashes. Former Army Chief Singh said it was a safe-proven helicopter, adding that he himself had traveled on it in difficult situations. In 2017, 7 military personnel were killed in a crash in the northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. The helicopter was on a training sortie. A year before that, another of the helicopters had crashed immediately after takeoff during a military drill in the northern state of Uttarakhand. No casualties were reported.
EAC News fully supports the royal government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, please, please wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
The 2021 National Tug of War Championships, held at the Teacher Training College of Kandal Province, started with a series of qualifiers on Sunday. Participating are sporting associations from both the capital and the provinces, competing for the championship in two disciplines, divided into both men and women's categories.
The National Tug of War Championship is supported by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports to continue the goal of developing the tug of war in Cambodia to grow even further. The chairperson of the organizing committee of the Cambodian Tug of War Federation, Saran Det, has confirmed this year's competition includes 9 men's associations with 46 players and 7 women's teams with 45 players. Secretary General of the Cambodian Tug of War Federation, Prak Sampor, stated the main purpose of organizing the 2021 National Championship is to select the best players from clubs across the country to include in the national team and continue strengthening the training capacity at the National Federation to participate in various competitions. Prak Sampor has specifically declared the major goal is to train all players for the 32nd Southeast Asian Games 2023, which will be the first time in the history of Cambodia that the kingdom will host such international competition. At the 2nd of December, Cambodians celebrated the 6th anniversary of the induction of traditional Cambodian tug of war to UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity list. According to Prak Sampor, tug of war is linked to Cambodian tradition and culture with evidences seen in carvings on the walls of many temples around the kingdom.
Lewis Hamilton won an eventful, twice-halted Saudi Arabian Grand Prix on Sunday to send the Formula One World Championship into a winner-takes-all final showdown, as the Mercedes driver and Red Bull's Max Verstappen are now level on points.
On a chaotic night of soaring emotions in Jeddah, the inaugural race in the Gulf Kingdom has taken almost as many twists and turns as an already astonishing and enthralling roller coaster season. There were crashes, safety cars, red flags, claims of dirty driving after Hamilton hit the back of Verstappen's suddenly slowing car, penalties, collisions, and extraordinary exchanges between race director Malcolm Massey and the top 2 teams. 7 times world champion Hamilton took the bonus point for fastest lap to level with Verstappen on 369.5 points after 21 races. The final round of the season is at Abu Dhabi's Yas Marina next weekend. Verstappen, who finished second with Valtteri Bottas third for Mercedes, leads 9-8 on wins, however, meaning that the Dutch 24-year-old will be champion if neither score another point. After his 103rd career win, Hamilton said he tried to be as tough as he could be out there, but also sensible, and with all his race experience over the years, just keeping the car on track and staying clean.
I didn't quite understand why all of a sudden he hit the brakes quite heavily, and then I ran into the back of him. And then he moved on, so I didn't understand exactly what was going on, and I got a message afterwards that he was going to let us pass, so it was a bit confusing.
The Briton started on pole, but twice lost out to Verstappen at standing restarts. The Dutch driver was eventually ordered to hand back the lead after going wide as Hamilton tried to pass, but when he slowed, Hamilton ran into the back of him, accusing his rival of brake testing him. Stewards handed Verstappen a 5-second time penalty, but Hamilton rendered that irrelevant by overtaking 7 laps from the end. Mercedes were angry with Masi, saying that they had not been given time to inform Hamilton that Verstappen had been told to give the place back, and Verstappen was also furious.
FC Porto prepared on Monday for their decisive Champions League match against Atletico Madrid at Drago Stadium. Tuesday's matches will decide which team will join group winners Liverpool in the next round.
Porto are on 5 points, while AC Milan and Atletico are tied on 4 points. So a victory in today's match secures a position in the last 16 for the Portuguese side.
Playing in this last match of the group stage with the possibility of making the last 16 is by itself vastly a praise to my team. It's good. I think it would also be deserved to make the last 16 for everything we did in the group stage already.
Aquilo que fizemos nesta fase de grupos, penso que o merecíamos.
Defender Pepe is out of the match after a positive test for COVID-19.
Pepe tested positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately for us, it's a situation that's out of our control, and that is part of what's happening in society. For that reason, Pepe will miss in this match. I'm convinced Milan will win against Liverpool, like I knew that Milan would get a good result against Atletico. So we just need to win our match and not think about the other.
O PP vai ficar de fora por esse motivo.
Porto can secure qualifications with only a draw if AC Milan fail to beat Liverpool in front of their own supporters. Conceição said his players need to go out and win their match because he believes AC Milan will beat what will likely be a second-string Liverpool at San Siro.
Cambodian jet ski rider Saleh Umud earns the first place for the third round at the Jet Ski Pro Tour 2021 in Thailand. The tournament's third round challenge has taken place last Saturday and Sunday, with athletes participating from Cambodia, Laos, the US, Germany and Thailand.
Saleh Umud is a gold medalist for Asian Games in 2018. He says he did well during the third round competition as there were no problems with his jet ski. He got the first place for the 4 rounds, so-called perfect games. The Cambodian athletes attending the competition are Min Mastan, Min Osman, Kai Asfansan, Sally Fahin and Sally Umut. Sally Umut and his cousin Min Mastan were ranked 1st and 6th among the 8th jet ski riders for the subject of Pro-Am Ski Modified, taking place on the 30th and 31st of October. In the second round, contestants held last 21st of November, he was ranked 4th and his cousin earned the 1st place. There are a total of 4 rounds of the competition at the Jet Ski Pro Tour 2021.
England's cricket selectors said on Tuesday that they have omitted Johnny Barstow from their 12-man squad for the Wednesday Ashes opener in Brisbane, and opted to keep seasoned paceman James Anderson in reserve for the second pink ball test in Adelaide.
With no time for tour matches and international games disrupted by rain, players will go in cold into the opening battle of cricket's most enduring rivalry. Mark Wood was named with fellow quicks Stuart Broad and Ollie Robinson, but may end up making way for spinner Jack Leach, depending on the Gabba wicket. If Wood is preferred, Joe Root, captained England, could go in, with 5 seam bowling options, with Ben Stokes and Chris Wokes including as all-rounders. Anderson is fit, but is being rested for the match in Adelaide, the team says. England clarified that Anderson had no injury concerns after media reported he had been ruled out of the Gabba test due to a calf strain. With Butler confirmed as wicketkeeper, middle-order batsman Ollie Pope is set to be the beneficiary of Barstow's omission and will have a chance to build upon his 81 in the 4th test against India at the Oval.
I think just with the build-up everyone's had, I think the guys just want to make sure everyone's perfect to go. No, Jimmy's not going to play, but he is fit. It's obviously a very long series, and we want a guy like that to be available to play as much part in it as possible. So I think it's just a bit precautionary. He bowled well yesterday, bowled again today, and obviously bowled a few spells in that couple of days we had as a warm-up game. So he is fit, but the guys are just being a bit precautious.
Australia's players will also be keen to ease the burden on new captain Pat Cummins, as the hosts hope to show the series deciding loss to India at the Gabba in January was an aberration. Cummins said he would lean heavily on vice-captain Steve Smith for tactics and field placement, while leading Australia's pace attack.
Yeah, I feel in a really good place. I always say I like to be underdone more than overdone going into a test series. Body feels great. We've had probably about 4 or 5 really good centre wickets whilst we've been up here in Queensland over the last few weeks, and just feeling in a really good place. All the quicks are bowling really well. Got enough overs under our belt, but feel really fresh and no niggles or anything heading to the first test.
Australia have not played a test since the 2-1 defeat to India. On Wednesday, Afghanistan's National Olympic Committee's acting president called on athletes who had fled the country after the Taliban takeover to return home. Nazir Mohammed Mahmen made the comments during a ceremony in Kabul, honouring Afghan players who had won medals for Afghanistan over the last 20 years and earned global recognition for their country. Around 200 players were honoured by the Afghan National Olympic Committee and the Department of Sports for representing Afghanistan in various sports.
The players, they have gone to foreign countries. They should return and they should be here together with us. The players' respect is here in their own country. Their respect is their own village and district in Afghanistan. Those who wish to go to foreign countries and they assume that they will earn respect there and a better life, believe me, this wish will remain unfulfilled until death.
Athlete Rahman Mohammadi also urged the Taliban government to support Afghan athletes. Many athletes and sportspersons, mainly women, have left Afghanistan since the Taliban took over in August. They were helped by international athletic representation by such bodies as IOC and FIFA. A women's youth soccer team from Afghanistan arrived in the United Kingdom on November the 19th, 18 months after the Taliban took control of their country. Reality star Kim Kardashian and Leeds United soccer club owner Andrea Rozzini also aided the efforts to relocate the 130 soccer players and their families. Earlier this year, Australia evacuated more than 50 female Afghan athletes and their dependents after lobbying by prominent figures from the sporting world, while several players from Afghan's national female youth soccer squad were granted asylum in Portugal. Binding their fists in bands and putting on their boxing gloves, Saudi women prepare for the kingdom's female boxing tournament this weekend. Out of a total of 12 regulars who frequent the Fight Club, a gym in Saudi Arabian capital, only 7 will be participating in the tournament. One of them has only been training for 2 months. The amateur boxers had been meeting once a week at the gym to spar after training solo using sandbags. But American coach Lee Stark's arrival meant the group of women could prepare for a more professional setting.
So when I first came to Saudi Arabia, it was strange to see the separation of the gyms of female to male. training boxing has always been something I've done, whether it was female or male together. So it was interesting to me. But we're really excited for the tournament that's coming up. And I think the women are going to do very well. We wish we had a little more time to prepare, but I think we'll do very well.
20-year-old Hatan Al-Sarif joined her fellow boxers in September and will be competing in the tournament after training for only 2 months.
I have things inside of me that I didn't know I had, and that I managed to find it. Yes, it has been only 2 months of training, and I can't judge just yet. But I'm happy to be participating in the tournament, which will be a big motivator for me. It's a big thing, but I hope it will push me for what's to come next.
Her teammate Sarah Al-Shahrani, who has been boxing for 4 years, has another goal in mind, with her participation in the competition. Organised by the Saudi Arabian Boxing Federation, the tournament will run from the 10th to the 11th of December. Now let's have a look at the weather and see what you can expect over the next few days. Thanks for watching the Weekly Roundup here on the EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the Daily Roundup Monday night at 8 p.m. I'll see you then.